Hey guys, MetalJesus here, and today I'm back with a video that is hopefully the first of many where I share with you my entire big box PC game collection. Now that is a very daunting task because the PC section of my game room and my collection is by far the largest. I have two full rooms dedicated to it. We're in my office right here, and then also the room across the hall is filled up with mostly PC games from many different eras and many different computers. Plus I've also got some stuff in storage. So my plan is to hopefully break these up into multiple episodes, multiple videos, sharing them over the next couple weeks or months if you guys like them. So if you like this idea and you want to see more of them, please give this video a thumbs up. That really helps me out. But for this video, I thought I would start in this corner right here and primarily focus on the 1990s. And so I'm not really sure how long this is going to take, and so I'm really going to probably cover this to maybe down here or so. We'll see how far we get, and then we can cover the rest in another video and over there and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, this is going to be mostly, I believe, 1990s era stuff. There is some little bit newer things in there. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so I'm going to start with the oversized stuff on the top here. Now, what's crazy is that I'm referring to big box PC games, which are large. Well, these are the large of the large. These are the largest of those, and so that's why they're actually up here, because they take up the most room. Starting with this right here. Now, this is actually the remastered collection of the new version of Command & Conquer. So that is actually, you know, the new version of Command & Conquer that came out digitally probably a year or two ago, I think. I'm trying to remember when that was released. But Limited Run put out the physical version of that. And so, man, that version is awesome to have. It's great to see a digital game, a new digital game, get a physical version. Next to that, we have the Marathon Trilogy box set by Bungie. So I'm sure some of you know this, many of you may know this, but actually Bungie started off as a Mac game developer. And their big title at the time was Marathon, which, you know, no surprise, is a first-person shooter. And this box is pretty cool because it's a collection of, you know, the trilogy, plus there is an art book in there. And again, it's just a really cool piece of Bungie history. Next up is the Wing Commander 3 Heart of the Tiger. This, I forget what this is technically called, this version of it, but as you can see, the box is freaking massive. So, you know, when Wing Commander 3 was released, its big selling point was that it was going to be a Hollywood quality interactive movie. It even says that on the cover there. And so this was a celebration of that idea. So it actually comes in this big box, but inside there is a 35mm film can package. There is a Wing Commander 3 t-shirt, which is actually pretty hard to find. It took me a long time to actually get that, to complete that collection, because most people who bought it probably wore the shirt. So it took a little while to get that, to make it complete. This is another one of my favorite special editions right here. This is a new release. So this is Planescape Torment / Icewind Dale, the enhanced versions. So this was originally made available through, I believe it's their Kickstarter or their Indiegogo campaign, but I guess it doesn't really matter. But, you know, it was a crowd-funded version of it. Had to buy this because Planescape Torment is one of my all-time favorite RPGs, and this is just a fantastic version of it. Lots of little cool feelies in here, including a squishy version of Mort, the skeleton that follows you around and taunts you in the game. Plus it's got this Icewind Dale medallion. It's kind of cool and unusual that a collector's edition has two very different games in it. You know, they're both obviously very similar in style, but they were very different franchises back in the day. And so it's cool that even exists, really. These are kind of an oddity. I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with these, but As you can see here, I've got these oversized versions of the Doom trilogy and also Duke Nukem 3D. So each one of these is a collection of the games released up to that point. The Duke Nukem one actually has a bunch of extra stuff in here, the Kiloton collection. But they're in these massive oversized boxes, which I want to say was probably maybe sold at Costco's. It's kind of something that would be very Costco-like, to have a bunch of software bundled up like that in a large package, because actually inside there it's mostly empty space, which is pretty weird. And kind of along those lines, you have the Half-Life Adrenaline Pack from Sierra. This is again another one that is bundled together, although I don't think this was released to, I don't think this was actually made for Costco. I think this is probably just, you know, one of those versions where they bundled a bunch of stuff together. Cool thing is that actually does have the full-size manuals, which is great. Here's another one that's newer, and this is one of my all-time favorite special editions. This is Doom Sigil. So this was John Romero going back and creating the proper follow-up to Doom 2. And man, this is absolutely amazing that they did this. It's signed, it's got a bunch of cool stuff in there. One of my all-time favorites. And then at the end here is something I've had off and on in my collection for the last couple of years. This is a sealed copy of Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Father. The reason why I have this up there is, one, is because it's obviously this kind of weird shaped box. They call it the origami box. I was at Sierra when we released this. This was a very cool, weird box that was put out. Very collectible these days. This actually left Sierra when my buddy Josh left there. So it's technically Josh's game, and then sometimes he has it in his game collection, sometimes I have it in mine. But it's just part of my history, and it's kind of cool to have, so. All right, down here is where I have some of my iconic and favorite first-person shooters. There's actually quite a bit of first-person shooting going on in the 90s, as you would expect. Starting off with a game that I couldn't believe I found this sealed, brand new, in a pawn shop. That, of course, is the shareware version of Duke Nukem 3D in just perfect condition. I was on vacation in this little small town over in Eastern Washington. I went into a pawn shop, and there it was, like with a beam from heaven shining down on it, and it was super cheap, probably been sitting there for decades, and it was just waiting for me to pick it up, so that's a pretty cool thing in my collection. Below that, we have System Shock. Actually, I should probably mention here, we have the original version of System Shock right here, as well as the new version put out and remastered by Night Dive Studios. So System Shock at the time was an absolutely groundbreaking first-person shooter slash adventure game. It was a shooter, but it also played very much like an adventure game. The thing about it is that it was very early on at, when first-person shooters were being made. And so the controls are really weird today, very clunky. It's awesome that Night Dive Studio took it, remastered it, made it run on modern systems, and that's what that special edition is right there. As well as one of my all-time favorite first-person shooter games. I love this game. That, of course, is System Shock 2. Man, I mean, left such an amazing impact on me when I played this game. It's survival horror, it's a shooter, it's got an amazing story, it's got really creepy characters, a fantastic enemy that Shodan who taunts you the whole game. Oh man, such a brilliant game. Next to that, of course, you gotta have Quake 1 and 2. I remember playing Quake 1 and 2 when they were new, and they were groundbreaking, and they just have to be a part of every single game collection. It's a requirement if you actually care about first-person shooters, as well as the original Wolfenstein. So here you see I have Wolfenstein 3D, as well as the Spear of Destiny, and I remember, like yesterday, seeing Wolfenstein 3D running on my friend's. He probably had a 386-25 or something like that. But man, it was just so much fun, so amazing to see running for the first time. And then this box of Spear of Destiny is beautiful. I love the artwork on there. As well as this I don't know what this is called. I guess it's like a shareware version of Wolfenstein 3D, but it comes with Blakestone Aliens of Gold. And I believe that technically Blakestone is the first 3D first-person shooter. I think that's true. Next to that, we have, again, one of my all-time favorite shooters. That, of course, is the original Deus Ex. And so I have two of them here. I believe this is the original North American release, as well as the Game of the Year edition, but I think this actually was released in a different country. Well, it has the ESRB rating. I don't know, but Deus Ex, again, changed the game. It was one of the first times I ever played a first-person shooter that gave me true choice. It allowed you to change the outcome of the story in really cool and interesting ways, and so that was definitely very memorable at the time. Here is a series that is near and dear to my heart. That is No One Lives Forever. I have two versions of the original game here. Man, these are awesome. They're kind of homages to, you know, the 1960s, the groovy kind of almost Austin Powers-like spy genre. Fantastic games, really like funny, smart, great graphics, great gameplay. I'm bummed though, I seem to have lost the second game because I really like the second game too. So, but I have two versions of No One Lives Forever. That is a series I would love to see make a comeback one of these days. Here is the original Halo. It's just really cool having a big box version of the original Halo. I don't know how common this is. I always think of the Xbox version when I think of Halo, but getting the big box version is pretty cool. I have two versions of Kiss Psycho Circus. That is another really weird first-person shooter that came out around that time, and you know, I'm a big Kiss fan, and so of course this is a given. It's not my favorite first-person shooter by a long shot, but it is cool that there were a couple different versions of it. I believe they released each of the members with their own cover, because that's a very Kiss thing to do. So as you see here, I have two of them, which is cool. And here are two other first-person shooters, both very different. The first one being Strife. So Strife is an old school style, you know, first-person shooter, but it's also got role-playing elements added to it. And at the time, this was very groundbreaking. It's still a really fun game today. You can actually get it on GOG remastered or updated for modern systems. And then you have 13, which was a game I originally played, I believe, on probably the Xbox, but that's based on a graphic novel, has a really cool graphic style. And so, you know, a game that actually recently got, I guess, a remaster, but I didn't play it because most people didn't like it. So didn't hear good things. Love to know what you guys thought down in the comments below. All right, next to that, we're getting into the LucasArts games and the Star Wars games, specifically in this little section right here. So what's to say here? There's a couple ones that I really want to point out. You know, Episode 1, Pod Racer, or I guess it's just called Racer. I always say Pod Racing because that's technically what it is. You know, just one of my all-time favorite racing games. Plus you also have the Jedi Knight games here. Man, those are awesome games. I love the Jedi Knight series. And then also the Rebel Assault series, Rebel Assault 1 and 2. Now, I don't know about you, but you know, at the time that Rebel Assault came out, as a Star Wars fan, I was starving for some new Star Wars stuff. This was before, I believe, the new versions came out, and certainly before the Episode 1 the Episode 1 movies came out. And so these were kind of like a, I don't know, just like a fan love letter of new content, new Star Wars content. And the fact that it was filmed, it just felt like, wow, this could be part of the Star Wars universe. And so at the time, that was pretty awesome to get. Over here, you have all of the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter games. I've mentioned before that TIE Fighter is probably one of my all-time favorite games. I haven't played it in a long time, but man, I was hooked on that series for a long time. I didn't really get into the X-Wing because I kind of like the bad guys. They got the cooler outfits, you know, and then the story was awesome, but that's, I believe, most of them right there. Up above there, we have an adventure game that when it came out was making a lot of news. That is The Dig. So this is a LucasArts adventure game, but what was interesting about it is that it was made with, or in collaboration with, Steven Spielberg. Now you have to remember back then that games were still probably considered to be for children. You know, they weren't necessarily taken seriously as a true creative medium by a lot of people. And so to have Steven Spielberg go, you know what, I'm gonna help with a game and help create its story and its vision. And we got The Dig. Now, I like The Dig. It's got a pretty cool, trippy story, but it's not my favorite by a long shot. In many ways, it's very obtuse. A lot of times you just don't know what the heck you're supposed to do. Some people love that. For me, I found it a little bit frustrating, but again, it's a cool part of gaming history. And then here's something that has become quite collectible over the last couple of years. That is the LucasArts Archives. Now I have volume 1 right here. So this is very much like what they did up here, where they basically would bundle in a bunch of games, and you could just, as a consumer, you know, very quickly get, fairly cheaply, a bunch of really great LucasArts games. What's interesting though is that these have become somewhat collectible. I did not see that coming at all. So not that that's necessarily a bad thing, it's just that, again, I was kind of surprised that, yeah, probably people who are going for complete LucasArts collections, this is one of them that you want to get. And I think a lot of people probably didn't keep the packaging. They would just throw it away and keep the CDs, you know, next to their computer. But yeah, so it's cool to have that in the collection. Next to that, I have 3 Indiana Jones games, all published by LucasArts. I always kind of forget that there were so many Indiana Jones games that were released by them. And what was cool is that each one pushed the technology a little bit further. You know, they started off as 2D, you know, traditional adventure games, and then eventually worked up to full 3D, almost like Lara Croft and Tomb Raider, which makes total sense because you can, you know, that's kind of what he does, right? He does the tomb raiding thing. And then next to that, oh man, I know I've mentioned it before, but Full Throttle is my all-time favorite adventure game. I know that's kind of blasphemy because it should be probably a Sierra game. No, it's this one. It's because it just has everything I love in it. It's got a awesome rock and roll soundtrack. It's got Ben, who's a badass. You've got motorcycles. It's a little bit in the future. It's kind of post-apocalyptic. It's funny. It's not too long. It's so awesome. Oh, and of course it stars Mark Hamill. Anything that has Mark Hamill, it's good. So yeah, this is really cool to have. Next to that, I have the first 3 Monkey Island games. So I have The Secret of Monkey Island, I have Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, and Curse of Monkey Island. Next to that is another one that is a great adventure game that I think a lot of people are finally catching on. That, of course, is Grim Fandango, another game that is wickedly funny, and it got actually remaster, so I replayed that on, I think, the Xbox 360. I also have it on the iPad. I think I've also got it on, like, on the Vita or something like that. And then next to that is Maniac Mansion Day of the Tentacle. I don't have the original Maniac Mansion. Actually, I'm missing quite a few other LucasArts games. Oh yeah, and I have Sam & Max Hit the Road. Many old school LucasArts games are actually fairly collectible these days. And specifically, you know, the original Maniac Mansion, Loom is another one that can basically get hundreds of dollars if it's in perfect condition. So there's definitely a lot that I could add to this, but for the most part, those are, you know, the LucasArts games that I really loved and played a ton in the 1990s. Over here is my Wing Commander / space arcade sim section of it. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the Wing Commander series because I actually did a full video talking about the entire collection in here. And the Wing Commander series, there's a lot to that. You've got the original games, you've got expansion packs, you know, you've got spin-offs and stuff like that. I started collecting, actually this is given to me by a friend, so there's even the Wing Commander books. The only thing really to point out of here that maybe I haven't talked a lot about is the Privateer series. So the Privateer games were basically based on Wing Commander, but they allowed you to play it however you wanted to. So you could be a pirate, you could be a trader, you could be good, you could be bad. That was really fun about those games. Another game in here, it's not related to Wing Commander in any way, but it is a space game. And It's probably inspired by Wing Commander, but I want to point it out that is Tachyon the Fringe by Nova Logic, so not even the same publisher, but it reminds me very much of the Wing Commander series. The main character kind of looks like the main character from the Wing Commander series, but what's awesome about it is that it's got Bruce Campbell in this game, and any game with Bruce Campbell is automatically bumped up a couple points in my book because I love that dude. He's so funny. All right, moving on. Another LucasArts game that just didn't have room to put up there, but man, is it awesome. And I think a lot of people are finally catching on to this. That, of course, is Outlaws. Very early, not necessarily the technically best looking first-person shooter, but at the time, it was one of the first-person shooters to be based in a Western. And so that was a pretty cool feature about this. It made it really stand out. I don't think it necessarily sold very well, but a lot of people like me today look back on this game very fondly. Next to that is a game I absolutely love. Did not get a whole lot of love when it came out, unfortunately. That is Shogo Mobile Armor Division. And essentially this game is, man, it's all sorts of awesome. So it's a first-person shooter, but what's cool about it is that you are both as a pilot on foot, but then you'll go into these big mechs. And so the scale of the game changes all the time. Plus it's just wickedly funny. It's hilarious. Man, I mean, you want to talk about a hidden gem, this is it. If you talk to people who have played this game, they'll all tell you it is criminally, overlooked for sure. Above that, we have a sealed version of Shadow Warrior. This is the shareware version here. I forget where I got this. I don't remember, but again, the shareware versions are cool because for a lot of people, this is the version that they played back in the day. Below that, we have John Romero's Daikatana, sealed as well. So yeah, that's pretty funny. I didn't play this game a lot. I have it on GOG. It's one of those games where I am intending to go back and play. I think it underperformed in sales when it was first released. That's the kind of feeling I get. But anyways, below that we have two Blood games. Actually, one of them is I guess it's basically an expansion pack for Blood, and then the other one is the sequel, Blood 2, The Chosen. So Blood is a first-person shooter, survival horror kind of, very gory. I don't have the original Blood big box version because that is another game that's also very collectible, very sought after. I've lost many eBay attempts to get that game. It's just one of those that's kind of hard to get. Now, when you're talking first-person shooters, you got to have some Doom in there. I have a couple Dooms in here. So I have Doom 2 for the Macintosh for some reason. I don't know why. The original CD-ROM of Doom. I have the Doom screensaver. Remember screensavers and how important that was? But yeah, I have the Doom one. And then I've got a copy of Final Doom. Final Doom's kind of interesting because I don't think it's technically released by id Software. I think it was a compilation, if I remember right, of just a bunch of mods and WADs and things like that. I believe there's also a version of Final Doom on, I think, the original PlayStation, right? Here are two really kind of curious games from Bethesda. We think of Bethesda today and you think of obviously the Elder Scrolls, or you think, Fallout. Well, way back in the 90s, they did Terminator first-person games, and you have two of them right here. You have Future Shock and also 2029. So I guess that probably translates a little bit into, the post-apocalyptic Fallout series. I guess they probably took what they learned from the Terminator and brought it into that, and it would probably make some sense. Maybe, I'm just kind of guessing there. Next to that, we have Sin, a game when this originally came out. There was some hype for it, but unfortunately it also, I believe, competed with the original Half-Life. So it was probably a little bit unfairly overlooked at the time. Shadowcaster, that's an Origin game. A little bit unusual. Actually, Shadowcaster, Hexen, and also Cyclones are the same developer. They're Ravensoft. And so, yeah, Raven Software, which is still around even today. I believe they're working on, I want to say the Call of Duty series. I should probably know that. But again, early first-person shooters. This is a relatively new game added to my collection. Well, new to my collection, but it's an old game. It's Cyclones. What is kind of weird about this is that it is SSI, which is a developer publisher. Yeah, I guess they're a publisher known for fantasy RPGs, D&D games. And to see a first-person shooter, they probably published this because they needed to have, or at least try to get into the first-person market. That's what that is. Then you have Battlefield 1942. You have the original and also The Road to Rome. All right, moving right along. These are kind of curious. Remember Elvira? So these are highly regarded adventure games based on Elvira, which is pretty trippy. So the first one is based on the movie that she put out back in the day. And then The Jaws of Cerberus is the sequel, and I believe this is all new. But man, I love that cover. That cover on the second game is freaking epic. Those are cool. And then down here, we've got a little bit of mishmash of a lot of stuff here. Forsaken is it's a Descent clone. So if you're familiar with Descent, this is very similar to that. This had a t-shirt in here, which I don't have anymore. And this had a very controversial marketing campaign in magazines where they had her showing a lot of skin. That's kind of what I remember from it, but actually the game is pretty great. I like Descent and I like this one a lot. Next to that, you've got a couple Aliens games there. This one's kind of curious. So this one's called A Comic Book Adventure. This is based on the graphic novel. Now you would think that when it says a comic book adventure, that it would be like a visual novel or something, but it's really not. It's actually a full-blown game. It just got a lot of really high quality for the time cutscenes and graphic parts to it, so that I think that's why they added that. Next to that, you have the Alien trilogy, so that's based on the first 3 games, and I believe that also came out, I think, on the PlayStation 1, maybe Saturn, something like that. Here is another very collectible adventure game. This is based on the novel, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. And this one, I believe, comes with a mouse pad. Yeah, it does. So another one of these kind of collectible games. A lot of people love this game. I don't think I actually finished it because I didn't get this until fairly recently. But I think it's because of the mouse pad that it's actually somewhat collectible. And then here's 3 games that I absolutely did finish. So you have Vampire the Masquerade Redemption. When this game came out, it was somewhat flawed. It's an RPG. It's a 3D RPG, so it's third person. What's cool about this game is that it goes through time. So it starts off, I believe, in the Middle Ages or something like that. I forget the exact era, but and then your character, spoiler alert, is put to sleep, and then you wake up, I believe, in modern times or slightly futuristic, but it uses the Vampire the Masquerade kind of pen and paper rules, and so there's a lot of backstory to that game. Again, not a perfect game, but I really enjoyed it at the time. It was pretty cool. And I've mentioned Planescape Torment. Man, just such a cool game. It's a game that is so creative. It's so inventive. It's incredibly well written, great characters. This was a game that if I had to sell my entire collection, this would be one of them that I would never get rid of. And then we have Blade Runner. So this is another game that I really enjoyed. So basically, you know, before we got the official sequel movie a couple years ago, this was considered to be the next best thing. And in many ways, it's very similar to the Ridley Scott original original movie, in that in many ways, it actually follows it almost too closely. But what's cool about this game is, and what's crazy about it, is that it's almost completely randomized. So if you play it multiple times, the person you'll meet on the street may be, like say a bum, may be one of the characters that you need to talk to later on who works in a hotel, or the hotel person will be, you know, a streetwalker, or a streetwalker may actually be, you know, this character or that character, which makes this game incredibly difficult to follow a walkthrough. You almost can't really do that. There are some walkthroughs that attempt to do it, but yeah, it's just such a cool game. It was beautiful, really well acted. I don't know, it's just very memorable, and it's because I'm a huge fan of the original movie that when I found this, I was like, oh, so good. All right, guys, well, I think I'm going to end this video there because we've obviously covered a lot today, but there is way more I need to show you in future videos. I haven't talked about the Tomb Raider series yet, Might and Magic, all of those Need for Speed racing games, the SSI RPGs, Ultimas, Warcraft, Diablo, all the Sierra stuff, the Half-Life collection. Yeah, there's much more that I can talk about in future videos. So if you like this one, please give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, I'd greatly appreciate it. And yeah, we'll continue the adventure around the game room. But love to know what you guys thought about this video. Please post a comment down below. Let me know if I missed something in my collection that you think I need to add. I'd love to hear it. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.